Well, it's wonderful.
LeAnn Rimes is the young woman with the great big voice, the huge career, and 2 recent Grammys. And once again,
after her
she's topping the
Grammy,
Billboard charts.
the world changed for her and changed for everyone around her too.
The Grammys propelled LeAnn from Nashville to Hollywood. She starred in a Lifetime movie, Holiday in Your Heart, playing a child star much like herself. Although LeAnn was only 14, she was very much in demand, even by one of the top songwriters in pop, the legendary Diane Warren.
She saw me in a restaurant in LA, and she came up to my table and said, I have these songs that I want you to record. Will you come back to my house?
I remember we demoed 3 songs that night in like an hour. 3 songs she didn't even know, and she just went through them, did like 2 takes, and her pitch was perfect, and the emotion was perfect.
How do I get through a night without you?
Warren had written the songs for the upcoming movie, Con Air, and one of them, How Do I Live, seemed perfect for LeAnn.
LeAnn went and recorded the song, did a great record, and did a video and everything. And just to make a long story short, Jerry Bruckheimer, who produced the movie, wanted some changes made to her record, which, you know, that's his right.
But the biggest change that Bruckheimer requested was one that LeAnn refused to make.
My dad was my producer at the time, and Jerry had wanted someone else to produce it. And after a long discussion with my father, I just didn't really feel comfortable with anyone producing me else yet.
So Jerry came back and said, do you mind if we have Trisha do it for the movie?
Trisha was country star Trisha Yearwood. She ended up doing the version for the movie, but Diane Warren let LeAnn keep the version she'd made.
And then I was asked to pull it from LeAnn, and I couldn't do it. And everybody was pissed off at me.
So that was my first taste of the business. And I was crying every night thinking, oh my God, this song's never gonna get heard. I saw Mike Curb, and he said, well, why don't we take the song to top 40 radio? Well, you know, country radio is going to play Trisha's version. We're going to release this no matter what.
So then we released How Do I Live as a pop record.
How do I breathe without you? If you ever go, how do I ever survive?
It was unheard of for 2 major stars to release 2 versions of the same song at the same time. But what happened next was even more surprising.
And both versions were hits. Trisha's was in the movie. She won a Grammy for that performance. LeAnn, to this day, is still the longest running song on the Billboard Hot 100 of all time.
It gave everybody something to talk about. And they were different versions. 2 great singers.
LeAnn's version of How Do I Live spent 69 weeks on the pop charts. By now, she had a staff, lawyers, publicists, and a corporation's worth of people working for her. And she was still just in high school.
I was hoping that she wouldn't get burned out. That was my worst fear.
She told me she had 65 people on her payroll at one point, and if she didn't work, they didn't get paid. And that's an awful lot of pressure to put on a little girl.
At 14, LeAnn Rimes was living her dream. But her extraordinary success was straining what had been a close-knit family. And in 1997, her parents decided to split up after more than 20 years of marriage.
I was very close to both of them, but I knew together it just was not working. And I knew what caused it. And, you know, having to deal with your child being thrown into stardom at such a young age, and so fast. I think, you know, that was a huge part of it, but it wasn't my fault. You know, we all kind of chose it, and we all knew what was going to happen, and we all dealt with it in our own ways.
LeAnn buried herself in work, and in spite of the turmoil at home, she was always on top of her game in the studio.
When she comes into the studio, she's already digested that song thoroughly, and what she does is she really inspires the band to play because they're playing to pretty much a finished vocal. At any given time, whatever she sings could be the record. In recording, that's not the norm.
In May of '98, LeAnn released her 4th album, Sittin' on Top of the World. The title described the state of her career perfectly, as she racked up yet another top 5 single with Commitment. But becoming a hit machine meant LeAnn had little time for a personal life. Then in 1998, that changed when she began dating 19-year-old actor Andrew Keegan.
Andrew and LeAnn met when she was 15 years old. He, at the time, was starring on Party of Five, so he was a hot commodity. LeAnn had seen him in a magazine layout, and when she was in town shooting a music video, he got word that she wanted to meet him.
I'll never forget, she came off the elevator and she was wearing a country-style jacket with tassels on it, and so that was sort of a little different, being so that I was from LA and hadn't seen tassels like that before. I think that was what was so interesting about getting to know her, is that we came from two entirely different worlds.
As different as they were, Andrew and LeAnn fell for each other, but it was long-distance love until she moved to LA and straight into Andrew's arms. Not everyone was delighted.
When asked what LeAnn's parents think of him, he said, well, they like me more or less. One more, one less. And he meant that LeAnn's father was not a big fan of him.
It was really hard for my dad to let this little girl go. But it was just something that I think every parent goes through, except ours was very much, you know, magnified in the press, and everyone was watching.
With Andrew by her side, LeAnn embraced the LA lifestyle. But some of her fans began to wonder whether the child star was growing up into just another spoiled Hollywood celebrity.
We knew her as this cute little girl with poofy hair and dresses like she'd just gone to church on Sunday morning. And then she hired an LA stylist, and all of a sudden we saw this totally different LeAnn. She would spend money on Gucci, Prada, she bought jet skis, 4 Harley Davidsons. She even went out and reportedly bought 2 thoroughbred horses for more than 6 figures.
Suddenly there were a lot of people around her, a lot of new people, and some of the new friends were the right people to be around her, and some of the new friends were there because she was LeAnn Rimes, the star.
That was probably when my life was under the biggest microscope, and people were watching the most that they had ever watched.
The media scrutiny got worse in 2000, when LeAnn became embroiled in lawsuits against the people who had helped make her a star.
She sued her father, who was originally her manager. She sued her former co-manager, Lyle Walker, and then at age 18, she sued her record label to get out of a contract that she had signed with her parents at age 12 that she claimed she didn't understand.
I think she wanted independence more than anything else. I think that's really what it was. It was a real declaration of independence on her part.
Her father, Wilbur, reacted with a countersuit that brought out a side of LeAnn that few had seen.
A judge ruled against her, and she turned to her father and said, I hate you. Her father later said he was confused and upset by the outburst, but he also said LeAnn should be made to honor her word.
We all say things that we don't mean, and in the heat of the moment, of course that comes out. But I never hated my dad. I just wanted a dad. I guess I just really disliked where he was in my life. I just wanted him to be my father.
Meanwhile, LeAnn continued to chase hits, teaming up with Diane Warren again to sing 4 songs for the Coyote Ugly soundtrack. One of them, Can't Fight the Moonlight, became a #1 hit in Europe.
Can't Fight the Moonlight was a pop hit, but I'm not sure how many of the people who liked it knew who was singing it. She kind of lost her professional identity in a certain way.
In the U.S., the song peaked at 71 in 2000. At 18, LeAnn's career seemed to have stalled. And in the spring of 2001, her relationship with Andrew Keegan ended after 3 years together.
You know, having separate schedules, it was really tough to maintain a relationship, and a healthy relationship, you know. And as a kid, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing when you're dating. When you're dating a million miles apart, you know, there's jealousy and insecurities and different things that just totally ruin relationships.
I think, you know, there's a point that sort of relationships run their course, and I think that's essentially what happened. I mean, the whole experience was beautiful, as complicated and as difficult as it was.
LeAnn desperately needed a change in her life. It was during this tumultuous time that she hosted the 2001 Country Music Awards and met the man who would become her husband, dancer Dean Sherman.
There's no escape from love. Once the cherry breeze weaves its spell upon her heart.
And he danced behind her and helped choreograph her performance during what I consider probably one of the most down moments of her life.
It was just a time for happiness, where something had to give, something needed to change for her. When she met Dean, he seemed to feel a lot of that for her. He was very interested in making sure she had what she needed and that she was taken care of.
She has a magnetism about her that you're immediately drawn to her. She's just a person that you want to get to know. And she has a smile that just lights up a room. It's one of those people you just gravitate to.
With Dean's support, LeAnn was ready to repair the other relationships in her life. In December of 2001, she decided to settle her differences with her record label.
LeAnn was so honest. I mean, she said she had talked to other record companies, but she also made it clear that she wanted, that she was a woman now and she wanted to do it her way. She didn't want to be treated as a girl.
And then they reached a settlement, and they gave her the kind of creative freedom that she was really seeking at that point. And she turned around and re-signed with them.